A lot of time. I think I'll just start very informally. I'm Bonaventure, so I run the space, and I would like to use this opportunity to welcome you to Savvy, this very small space in Neukölln where we try to do what we can do. Welcome to the exhibition, the end of the exhibition actually. Anybody who's disturbed by the flow of information, curated by Jung and featuring Yunchul Kim and Sonntag. Basically, I would most especially like to welcome Paul de Marinis to this small talk we're trying to do, and the idea was to take this away from just showing stuff. You know, of course, we talk about objects, we talk about epistemic things, we talk about the knowledge these objects can produce, can carry. But we thought it wouldn't suffice to do this just in the framework of just showing the works, but it would be good to go a bit further than that. So we decided to put up a small meeting ground and have artists talk with each other, as well as in the next step. And I hereby welcome Philippe Klein-Michel, who's going to talk also with the artists from a theoretical, philosophical point of view. And then we open it up to the curator, Jung, who's going to talk with the artists and with us. You know, the idea was basically, I thought of a circle, you know, so that we don't really have a hierarchy of who's, well, we just throw information in space and discuss issues. So without much ado, once more, thank you very much for coming by, and just go ahead and talk.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome to. And the idea of this is a kind of prologue. We open the round circle at 8, and the idea was the chance that Paul is here, and that he's now here. He's a professor at Stanford, and he is a great colleague in the same field. So, as an open first thing about the idea, now we are sitting here, Yunchul and me and Paul, because we are working in a way in a, you could say, similar field. We're working. What you call media art, we're working with technology. And so the idea is just to open up the talk in a kind of inner circle, just artists talking before we go into conversation with people from theory, and we go on other things, because we want to talk later about epistemic things, but so I thought maybe it's interesting to start to talk about the relation of art and technology, which is an older thing, and even there is some epistemic things, because we can talk about technology, which is a big change in modern science, but just out of the perspective of that we all use technology, work with the things, I thought maybe it's interesting that we can talk about the topics, what is important for us. Another similarity is that we all once studied composition. It's funny, we are all working in the art fields, and just by accident that you have studied composition too. You too, so I don't know if this is a principle, but maybe it makes it easier to be in process-oriented art.
Maybe.
So maybe the first question to you is what brought you to use and to center in your work technology and media and just work in the substance of the apparatus?
Well, for me, well, I think that I was doing what I do now when I was 7 or 8 years old, but I didn't know anything about art or science, but I was working with things, noises and batteries and wires. And when I have to think about stuff, still, I sit on the floor with wires and batteries and noises and figure it out, like how I'm gonna make an installation or something. So I think the fact that this could have been art is just the sheerest accident of my time, that I grew up in a period when artists were so, the avant-garde was so conceptually broad. And I think the reason I got into composition was because at that time in America, John Cage was enormously open to people doing all kinds of things. And that could be music. So I think that's how I got into composition. I feel as though I'm an accidental artist. I just did what I was interested in, what my interests lead me to, and art was the only place that would have me.
And what's the difference in between studying music and art in that time in using technology?
Well, the art the visual art I studied was film. So, 16 millimeter film, which was an experimental technology in a way because you couldn't just cut it. It's a material. And also it has this quality of being a receiver of light. You make light, you project light with it, but you also do this capturing thing, stealing light. You steal light, and then you chop it up, and then you put it back. So I think that was, kind of had this technological aspect to it. Video wasn't possible yet, except when I was studying. It was video, you couldn't record video, except maybe ABC or CBS. They had big video recorders. It was before the Portapack.
So it was on the 60s.
Yeah.
In 72 the first.
Yeah, when I was in graduate school, then the first Portapack came out.
You still had them in the university.
Yeah.
It's really tragic. When I studied, we still had the first system, it was totally old stuff.
So I don't know, those things were interesting to me because they offered these possibilities, but as far as a framework, a cultural framework, it was only because, if somebody, it was non-military, and I could do it, I was accepted by people like John Cage or Paul Sheretz or the people, David Tudor, these people that I worked with. They accepted that what I did was okay to do. It could be art. After that, music got much more conservative again. And so I found myself withdrawing from music because it didn't have, it became like Philip Glass or something like that. It was not interesting to me. And also, basically, its idea, the audience sits still and listens to this masterpiece.
You said it was Terry Riley.
I said it, Terry's totally different. Terry wasn't, he wasn't into the grand masterpiece thing. Terry's a stone jazz
Because
musician.
from the same tradition.
No, minimal. Yeah, I like minimal, but it's like this idea of the big work, the great work.
So it was not at that time in the opposition to the European school.
No, I didn't know very much about that. My studies, we studied Weber,
Yeah.
and Dalla Piccola, and things like that.
Because Steve Eichmann said that his whole idea about music was in opposition to the posterior techniques of Europe.
But how about you? How did you get to be a composer?
So I grew up with music, but in my family we don't have a musical, but I really love music to hear. And after some like other teenagers, I started to play guitar. And that times also I had a love to have one computer. And this old Macintosh, Apple II, have at times it has no media to store the data, like a CD or a diskette. And you can store your data, so the cassette tapes. And I really enjoy to store the data to here, not to as a program. Then at times I make some kind of tracks that I type, so basic programs, just A 10 times, and try with X 10 times. Then you can hear the beep, beep, or something like this. Then it was first my composition to make kind of noises. I didn't know that about the music composition or electronic music, but I was really familiar with this kind of sound. Then after 18th or 17th, I really studied music because I love also contemporary music like Jung or Schoenberg or something like this. Then I decided, okay, then I will start music. Then after I going on with this kind of electronic experiment in the university, then somehow I have a chance to meet other medias like animations and like video, some visual piece. Then also it is not difficult if you study music. Then always mathematics is in the ground. Then automatically I learned programming and this kind of working with computers. Then I had more motivation not only to use computers, because I really love to know about this kind of values, how they use, or like a system, something like this. Therefore, I really enjoy it, not only to use computers, also to understand the language. Therefore, I make this kind of piece, just write down the data and something like this. Then after I mixed with two words, and visual and also music. But music is my first dream. Also, I heard that Jan Peter also studied Posaune. Also, he's a music player. When we talked about before the setup this exhibition, we really talked about much more music than the art, because it is not easy to meet people in the art scene to really speak about music, not in common music, also very deep levels like Terry Riley or John Cage. Nobody knows of sometimes about this kind of history of music. But we know this kind of the world, and we really talk about the many music history. Also today's what is happening. Also about the radios or something special machines, and also he told me about how difficult to get this kind of sound live or something like this. And also you can.
So in a way we share the same background. I don't want to repeat it.
So what about you?
It's the same story. I just can say that when I was a kid I was more interested what was in the machine. So someone gave me something like a wire child telephone system. I got it for Christmas. And the thing is, I directly opened it. It never worked. I just wanted to look what's inside. I was always interested in even just looking into a radio and to understand something just by seeing it, what makes no sense. But I always like to open a machine to look into that. And yes, when I first studied trombone during my school days, because it was in a gymnasium for music and everyone practiced a lot of. You're always in a competition just when you enter in the system, because some practice 2 hours, they say I have to practice 2 hours too, and so you're in that field of competition. Could be the same when you're on a gymnasium for sport. But I didn't like the music that much, and I was not into classical music. I had to practice that, but basically I was more influenced by jazz in that time. Traditional jazz. I grew up with swing music and post swing, and so when I was 16 I was totally interested in free jazz. And in that time, even with the first records from Jung, that was on my way back to Dolphy and all the thing to work with this kind of mixed setting. Having half of the table full with creepy electronic, what you call now hardware bending. On the other side you have some trombones and you have weird concepts. But in that time it was just practicing. And jazz when I studied music, and a big influence was KH2, but years later, so in the middle of the 80s, and he was one of the first person I met through my Curator, one of my composition teachers. He said, "Oh, do you want to meet John Cage? He's coming for breakfast tomorrow." I said that, and I met him. So I got all these theoretical ideas later, and I always try. First, I read the books of the people, and later I want to meet them, like Kage, Tudor. I always wanted to meet them in workshops to see how they are, because first I read something about them, then I want to meet the person, and so that was really the big influence for me from this field. But later, like you two, I studied art too, and I was always interested in older technology because the university had just older technology. So reenacted early pieces by Dan Graham because we had the same machines. Because all the money, even after the fall of the wall for the Western universities, they got new media, went out to the new East universities. And so we still had pneumatic data and all this old stuff, and so you could work just in old technology. What brought this kind of later than media archaeology aspect in my work, because I just used the machines which are there. And it was like a museum for old machines, our media department. There was nothing new. And you're working with old technology too, so maybe we can go in this direction, because we are always interested not in only in the actual technology. We're always interested in lost technologies, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know, the idea of recording and receiving is something that I was really, like I said, from a child interested in. I think this idea that there would be automatic recording of what people said, like a big record, like a really big record, you know, that could record everything, so that in a sense you wouldn't have to listen to it, but then you could receive it. That you would receive voices from far away from the whole world on a radio. We had an old tube radio when I was a kid. And you know, you could hear all these different places, and it had all the exotic places of the world on its dial, you know, like Hilversum and Berlin and everything, all these places, and you would tune it. But the radio was already like 30 years old, so everything had changed because of the war. So you would tune to Hilversum, and it would be some radio beacon that sounded like it was coming from another planet, you know. And so this, I mean, our whole consumer culture of technology is, you know, increasingly, it's this pile of junk. And I got the junk from my grandparents' radio, but now, you know, my kids get the junk of, you know, the mobile phones and the iPads. I mean, everything, closets are just full of these retro technologies. I think media archaeology is kind of our condition. It's our daily condition of having to resuscitate. You're looking for some photo from a few years ago, and you have to be a media archaeologist to read that photo again, because it's on. Maybe you have to actually keep it on the chip, on the camera, and, you know, plug in the charger to ever see that image again, because some format has changed, or the card is, you know, it's a card that doesn't read anymore. Mm. So I think it's everybody's condition, this interest in old machines.
So what about the prospect? The interest in old machines is the retrospect. You go back and look at it. So what about the future, the innovation?
There's always innovation as long as people are motivated to be innovators. I live in a place where innovation is everything. You go to the restaurant, and people are making $1 million deals for venture startup things. Everybody does that. My children's school in the 5th grade does venture capital startup projects. No, really, this is what they learn. There will always be this kind of thing, and for me, I remember, I was like very futuristic. It was the part of the avant-garde art impulse with computers and to use computers and everything, until a certain point when I saw that it's just this mountain of junk, and we're a junk culture. And junk in both senses of the word, in the sense of trash and in the sense of addiction, you know. And we're this junk culture, which is fine. It's our condition. But I got really interested then in going backwards. And so at some point I started making these pieces that really started to mine the history of recording as my fantasy when I was a kid or something, you know. But I don't know, you have another take on it too.
So,
And there's some, because today many people, maybe for 10 years ago, everybody talking about art and science, media art and technology. And now many people discourse make a project with art and science. But to have something idea what is different than science and technology. I would like to ask you, because people sometimes they don't distinguish what is science and what is technology. We use technology, but many people say, I make a technology art and science project, but sometimes if I observe it, there is not very clear border from where is the science and where is the technology. Have some idea to explain or did you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of have my own
Yeah.
compartment in my head.
Mm.
But my father was a scientist,
Yeah.
and I remember him saying the difference between an engineer and a scientist. He was talking about a particular engineer.
Mm.
Is an engineer could believe that the world was created in 6 days. This guy was like a religious guy, you know, and he said no scientist could ever believe that. That's not science. But it's more than belief.
maybe we want to continue on that topic later, because I think that was the reason that I started with the question of technology, because I think this is a big mistake in the moment that we're talking so much about art and science, and yeah, I think it would be not the right place now to make a definition of what it could mean, but the relation between technology and science is basically that, yeah, we deal all with technology, and technology, even in the history of invention. For me, it was really interesting to, in the 2006, when I did the Sonntag project about the history of electricity, to see that there starts a gap even in between Europe and America, that all the natural scientists and the people who were interested. A good example is Heinrich Hertz. Heinrich Hertz wants to have evidence for the idea of the existence of an electromagnetic wave, was a mathematical idea before, and so he wants just to prove it. And when he was asked once if he believes that you can use this electromagnetic wave, which was just calculated before, he said no, he has no idea if you can use it. And then he died really soon after experiments, and only 7 years later we have the first patents by Marconi on using the electromagnetic wave for the first functioning radio. And in the following, when you then read the idea of Edison once said, he asked himself, what is electricity? And he said he put some electrodes on his brain, and he, in a way, he did experiments like before we're done in Europe to invent the fritter or arrow for the radio by Lodge. That were experiments about thought transmission by electromagnetic spheres. And by accident, the tool came up, but Edison did similar things, and he said he got no answer. And now we still don't know what electricity is, but he's proud to have most patents on it. And it shows really the difference that inventors are just interested in finding solutions for technical purpose, and to find patents and to find, and even to make some product out of it, and to find the right normation, to win in the run for norms after that. And for science, it's a totally different thing. In the old European school, they were just interested on ontological question. What is electricity? Do we find a theory? It was not about inventing tools, inventing machines. And so this is a totally different field. And nowadays, a lot of artists, like us too, are interested in technology. And this is even a big part of the whole avant-garde history in even the closer modernity. Like think of Laszlo Notch and the Russian futurism, and so they all were totally obsessed with all new things, new possibilities, new machines, new perspectives they can win. But it was not, they were not so much interested about basic theories about atoms, basic theories about what the physics discussed at that time. And so I think that there's a big gap even in the 20th century between being an electro engineer and developer and being someone who's doing basic research in whatever field. Now, I stop it here because now I don't want to make the whole...
I think it's extremely interesting because from the point of view of an engineer, I think it's about the what and the how. You know, as you just mentioned, what is this and how do I get to it? And I think that's the technology and the sciences, you know. And I think it's very beautiful to see this very small paper by Reinberger, and he talks about this. Is what happened to molecular biology? I think it's called, you know, how we got there, you know, about these objects, these very technological things, and how they aided, you know, did the how to get to the what, you know. So I think it's a very interesting point to talk about.
Yeah. So for that point, I want to point out that the interest of artists in finding different ways of using technology, and even to, I had a long discussion with people about misuse, and especially with Nick Collins. They always said, no, I'm not misusing technology. I said, no, maybe you use it in a way it's not meant to be. We always use technology in a different way. We buy a Casio sampler, and now it's called bending, and we open it and we try to manipulate something to build something totally different out of it, or to find something which is specific in the technology, like data errors. The most interesting things when digital technology came up, to hear what it creates out of itself, not to reproduce music. And the same with the record, and even now in this whole retro movement. People are interested in old technology because they like everything which is not meant to reproduce a certain kind of reality. So you buy an old camera because you like the tone, the special color. You use a tape machine because you want to have the noise. You use a record because you like the crackling. In the time we had only records, we used different systems like water to have no crackling sound. It should be totally high fidelity. Now we like it, but it sounds like a record. So we want to feel something from the medium as itself. Maybe this is a kind of even this is a materialistic thing.
This connection of touch, whether it's turning a knob or the feeling of the crackle or the piece, this receiver, this being a receiver. We were talking today about, you know, what is it when a work of art is just a receiver, when it doesn't transmit or express, or it just receives. I think this is I think a lot of this tactile thing, from the analog synthesizer, turning the knob, or
Is it a kind of special fetishism we can talk about that we really like?
Well, is it a fetishism? Yeah, is it a fetishism for having a kind of touch? I mean, you know, in the 18th century, it was believed that we only learn to see by touching and by coordinating. A baby learns to crawl around and sees things and picks them up, feels them, puts them in its mouth, tastes them, and so on. But you know the world by touching. Touching and tasting is a lot of it. So I wonder if this is, I mean, is it a kind of retro nostalgia, or is it actually we still crave to have some people still crave that tactile materiality. Certainly artists, a lot of artists have gone away from materiality and want completely immaterial things. And certainly I think a lot of music aspired in a certain period, maybe the beginning of the 20th century, aspired to immateriality in a way too.
Yeah. But at the end, you end up in the problems of materiality. This is always the problem even with music. If you might just, there are some concepts of music you can just read. For the few people who are in the old tradition of reading music, and I always like the idea because I can't do that. I can read and play, but I can't read. But I was told by teachers of mine that they sit at home and just reading scores, perceiving it, reading Wagner's libretti and just reading the score, and it's just the inner sound, the perfect sound, not limited by the instrument. I can say it was obviously opposite. I was interested always in the instrument and the power, and this is even the only reason I go to orchestral music concerts of modern music. I like this waste of money and material to see 1 million on stage of specialists playing that really high specialist instruments of a history of 400 years to play whatever avant-garde stuff with really minimal sounds, but to see all this machine power there to create.
I don't know, I have to admit I stopped at a certain point. You know, I had to play trombone. I didn't want to play trombone, but I had to play trombone in high school. And I hated the little valve that lets out the spit, you know, I really, that was like, you know, it's like you have a musical instrument and you're doing something and then you have to go flush the toilet, you know, it's stinky and so there's a part of the materiality of the music for that, you know, that kind of music materiality that I suppose I
know this problem, but I never had that problem. I hate more the valve for the core. But so we can say that we all started to work with our materials before we thought about art.
Yeah.
And all the theory.
Yeah.
But so music was the only chance to go in this direction. And so in your academic background, I'm really interested in, you studied in Seoul?
Yes, I've studied music composition in Seoul, and after I was 1 year in Karlsruhe by Wolfgang Lee, he's a modern music composer. Then after I met Heino Geber, he's also one of nice composers, so he makes also visual art and theater piece. And I really enjoy this kind of multidisciplinary thing, not only like a score or something like this. And after I decided, okay, then I will quit this music studies, then I go to some new field. Then I go to Cologne, then I study media art, KHM. Then in that times in Cologne, there is also not only visual art, also there is nice people for music, also for computer music, like Anthony Moore or Alberto De Campo, very you know. And we don't have not so much people with music, they make music, but we really enjoy to make own experiment and so on. That was my background to make now.
And at what time art and its avant-garde history became important, or became at any point important for you? Like I can remember that I was really impressed by the 60s minimalism. So Bruce Nauman was one of my heroes, and Dan Graham. So and I like that it's a totally different perspective, and even the theory of art was totally different because they have much more meta layers which music never had. When you study composition, or you study an instrument, you're totally into practicing, learning language, that music, I would say, had not so much meter levels, so you're just in the line of constant narration, of ongoing history of new music. Now we have different musics too, but art always came like, we don't want to have that fixed word anymore, we go into more a conceptual line, what is art? So this kind of really high-level questions were much more important for the art scene in the 60s than for the music scene.
But Dan Graham's thinking is all about rock and roll.
You're right.
I mean, it's the organization of his work, it's of his mind, it's all, and which is why he really didn't like avant-garde music.
Mhm.
He had no use for avant-garde music. You know? I mean, he wrote a lot about music.
Okay, the other way around, are there some artists who are important for you? Because we mentioned just composers. No?
Yeah. Sure.
So the history of art is not that important for you.
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah, it's very important. But it's like important to me the way that, you know, if you lived through World War II, whatever side you happen to be, your family, wherever you happen to be born or something, makes a lot of difference, you know? I mean, it isn't like the history of art.
Yeah.
It's like what I learned from people and what influences. And you only learn to recognize those influences much later.
Yeah, so my question was much simpler. If there are some artists who has the same importance to your work, like John Cage, Tudor, and all the names, and we have the same heroes in music, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of the influences on me were in avant-garde film, so, you know, which is, you know, it wasn't painting, it was filmed directly, and then indirectly through that, I guess, there were painters who influenced those people. So, but it's not a matter of like a litany of names. It's, I think there are movements and forces. And if you happen to be born at a certain time and live in a certain place, and, you know, either you get out of there or you gravitate to there. And those are the forces that build your sensibility. You have to be in tune where you get out. But if you were born 10 years earlier, it would be totally different. I don't know.
But do you have some important artists?
So for me, I love the more musicals and artists. But I like very much classic artists or romantic times like William Blake. I love his poems and also his vision to make. I like very much like so Italian artists at that time, the mannerism in the 16th century, so 15th century. They really have a lot of ideas, not only just represent reality. They really draw not like a surrealistic. They had kind of something like a media artist. They built on parable lens to reflect the real the nature, then to paint this kind of deformed. I love very much this time. Also, contemporary artists are like Bruce Mohan. Also, I like also this song, also that time Marcel Duchamp. So not only his piece, also his kind of thinking, and I like very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we call it for the first round.
Yes.
You know, so we're basically going to do a very short break and then do the transition. So Philip's going to join you guys, and then we just continue the talk, you know, and then we see from what perspective?
Yeah.
You know. So, thank you.